Hey, Allison Verhalen here with AV Writing Services, and today I am talking about the future of blogging. So not only is it a new year, it's a whole new decade. Do you even remember blogging 10 years ago, way back in 2010? I don't think I do. I'm trying to remember what I was doing in 2010. Maybe getting my blog, my book review blog started. That was about it. And that's really all blogging was, right? A few people here and there were blogging about whatever they felt like on just because they could, just as a way to get their thoughts out on the internet. It was more of an event than a real way to engage with people and convert them into leads. And now, 10 years later, we have every business is blogging to grow their business. And if you're not blogging to grow your business, you're missing out on so many opportunities to attract, engage, and convert leads for your business. So here we are talking about blogging in 2020. So what's it going to look like in the next 10 years? So it starts with the ideal blog post length. Now, you're not going to want to hear this if you're a solopreneur doing it all yourself, or maybe you have a small team doing your content creation for you, or maybe you're hiring someone like AV Writing Services. But in any case, the ideal blog post length, studies have shown that the average blog post that shows up in searches has an average length of 1,750 words. That's a lot. If you're writing in a Word document, for example, that would be about 3.5 pages. Typed up, single-spaced, that's a lot of content. And it can take a while to create all that content. The good news is that, again, despite all the evidence that says you need to be blogging, a lot of businesses are not blogging. And a lot of the businesses that are blogging are creating blog posts that are less than 800 words. So if you put in the time and the effort and you create those really long blog posts and you publish them regularly on your blog, we're going to get to that last part in just a second. But if you write those really long blog posts, you do have a better chance of showing up in searches because so many businesses, again, despite all the evidence, and we keep telling people again and again, you need to be blogging, you need a schedule, you need all this awesome content, all these keywords, a lot of people still are not doing that. So if you do that, you have a much better chance of showing up in those searches for those relevant keywords. Now, blogging frequency. More bad news if you're doing this yourself. The most successful websites, the websites that show up the most in searches, tend to blog 16 times per week, if not more often. So that's more than twice per day that they're publishing new content on their website. Now, if your content is super short, that's great. That's not too bad. But again, that really long content, there's no way you're going to be writing 1,700 words 2 or 3 times a day. That's just not realistic. And again, if you're outsourcing that to someone like a company like AV Writing Services, there's no way. I mean, if you're a very large business, maybe you can afford that. But for small business owners and people just starting out, it's just not realistic to post that much. So I'm going to give you the good news, which is that consistency matters and quality matters so much more than quantity. So don't worry about that particular statistic. Instead, again, focus on that long, in-depth, data-rich content. When you create a blog post, make sure that it's a really awesome blog post because Google's algorithm is getting better and better at recognizing high-quality content, and Google recognizes the consistency. So find a schedule that works for you. Again, if you're a solopreneur doing it yourself, maybe you can only do it once a week, once a month, once every other week. Whatever schedule works for you or works for your budget if you're outsourcing it, pick a schedule and stick to it. Publish a new blog post on that day, at that time, every single time, every week, every month, whatever works for you. That is going to improve your ranking so much more than trying like mad to produce content every day or multiple times a day. And then when you get busy with client work or other stuff in your life and you fall back and you don't have time to produce content and your blog goes dormant for a while, people are going to notice that. Google is going to notice that, and it's going to affect your rankings, and you don't want that. So Again, pick a schedule. If you're outsourcing the content or teaming up with someone, let them know what the schedule is, work with them so that you make sure that that content gets published on a regular basis. Now, there are people in the industry who say that they were posting every day or even multiple times a day and killing themselves trying to do it and not getting the results they wanted. So they pulled back and they created, again, that really long post once or twice a week. And they're creating less content, but it's better content, and they're doing it less frequently, but again, on a consistent schedule. And they saw much better results when they started doing that. So again, quality over quantity, but also realize that it's going to take time before you see any results from your blog. I'm sure one of the reasons that they saw better results after they pulled back was because they already had a ton of content on their website. And it might take a while for Google to see that and to index all that content. But once it does, that's going to help you show up in those searches. Websites that have more than 400 blog posts tend to show up in searches much more than websites that only have 100 or fewer blog posts. So, but again, don't kill yourself trying to create all that content. Give it time. Give Google time to index your website. To come to trust you and your website as an authority in your industry, and then again give your audience time to come to trust you and recognize that you really know what you're talking about when you create a new blog post. So what's next? Blogging on mobile. Now, Google all made us go mobile friendly several years ago, so your website should already load on mobile, but does it look good on mobile? Does it look as good on mobile as it does on a laptop or desktop? Because people are using mobile more and more. They're using their smartphones and their tablets even more than they were a few years ago when Google made us all go mobile. That trend has only increased, especially if you're trying to get people who are millennials or younger. If you're trying to go for the older generation, then they're probably on their desktop more and you don't need to worry about your appearance on mobile as much. But then you do need to check and make sure that it looks good on your desktop. Make sure that it looks good there, because wherever your audience is, wherever they're hanging out, you want your content to be there and you want your content to look good there. I know it sounds shallow. I know we're all told not to judge a book by its cover, but the truth is that we do. We all judge a book by its cover. We judge people and brands by their appearance. So it has to look good where your audience is consuming that content. Along with that, it goes images in your blog post. You gotta have images in your blog post. Now, this does improve your rankings in Google, which sounds a little counterintuitive because Google can't actually read images yet. I'm sure they're working on that. In the meantime, you've got that alt text in your image. So make sure it's a little meta tag that you can easily include, especially if you're using WordPress. You've got that little box on the side that invites you to put a little alt tag in there. So do that, use relevant keywords. Use relevant keywords in the title of the image, because that's what Google is going to read when they can't read the image itself. So that can improve your rankings. And again, make sure it's a high quality image. You can't just pick a stock photo off the internet and put that up at the top of your blog post and say, okay, I'm done. That it doesn't work anymore. You need blog posts throughout your content to break up the content, especially if you're writing those really long 1,700, 2,000, 3,000 word blog posts that a lot of people are doing. So make sure that you have several images and that you have alt tags and title tags for all of them. And then again, they can't just be stock photos. They have to engage the reader. They have to improve their experience of your content. So for example, if you're throwing a lot of numbers and data at them, put a chart up. Put it all into a chart and put that in the blog post so that they get a visual representation of that information. And that will help them understand the content better, and it will make them more likely to engage with your content and read all the way through to the end of the blog post to get to that call to action, which is it's what you want them to do. It's what you want them to do next. It's why they're reading that blog post, so that you can lead them to the next stage in the funnel. But if they don't, they lose interest because it's a whole bunch of text and they couldn't quite figure it out, or they didn't want to figure it out because it was boring. then you're going to lose them. So that those high quality images and charts and infographics are also a great way to engage those people so that they continue reading your content. Infographics are also great because they're great to share on social media. If you don't want to share a link to your blog post, or if in addition to sharing your blog post, you want to create another post later in the day or in a day or two, you can just post the infographic instead of, like I said, 1,700, 2,000 words of content. You just have something that's like this long, and people go, oh, people are much more likely to read that because you're condensing all that information into a small amount of space, and people are going to consume it. And if you can, include links into the infographic so that when people find a bit of information in there that they find especially interesting and appealing and they want to learn more about that, make it easy for them to go to that section of the blog post so that they can just click on that section in the infographic and go there in the blog post and get more information. Interactive content is also going to be huge in 2020 and beyond. So if you can get a jump on that now, you're going to be ahead of the competition already. So use images, make sure they're high quality images that help people engage with the content instead of just breaking up the content. Breaking up the content is important, but the images have to do more than that these days. Finally, how long does this all take? People want to know, if I'm writing these really long blog posts and making sure I have the data to back up my claims, how long is this going to take me? It depends. I mean, again, if you're writing really long content and doing all the research, it's going to take you a few hours. That's just the way it is. But it also depends on how well you know your industry, whether or not you're a strong writer. I've had clients where I write for them and it'll just be like a quick 500-word blog post, and it doesn't take me that long. It takes me maybe an hour, probably less, depending on what I'm writing about and if I'm really focused. But for someone who doesn't, either they don't know what they're talking about, so they have to do the research, or even if they do know what they're talking about, but they're just not a very strong writer. Words don't come easily to them when they're sitting there staring at that blank screen. So it can take them a lot longer to write the same amount of content. And if you're a business owner, you don't have time to waste. Time really is money for you. So most of the time, again, if you're not a strong writer, if it's not what you want to do, you're much better off outsourcing it to someone who can put it together real quick and make it better, because again, they know all the things that need to be done to get it to show up in searches and to engage people and include that call to action at the end so that you can convert those leads into customers. Don't put up a blog post just because you think you have to put up a blog post. There should be a goal for each blog post that you publish. What do you want people to do when they get to the end of that blog post? How are you going to convert them into a customer or get them to take the next stage in the buyer journey so that later on down the line they can become a customer? Get them through that funnel. So again, it takes time. I think for me, writing, again, a 2,000 word blog post with all that data and everything, and then editing and putting the images and all the links and everything in there, it takes me about 4 hours, give or take. So that's what you're looking at. If you want to create, again, the smaller blog posts, fewer images, make sure they're shorter, fewer links, getting all the links in there takes me a while. So there's a lot to do, and there are a lot of reasons that I do what I do. There are a few shortcuts you can take, but again, like I said, there's a reason for everything that I do. So that is everything that you need to know about blogging in 2020. So if you're ready to go take it on yourself, go for it. You have everything you need. If you have any other questions, if it sounds overwhelming and you just want to hire someone to do it, we can help you with that too. We are at avwritingservices.com. If you want to reach out to us and ask any questions, our email is info@avwritingservices.com. Again, I'm Allison Verhalen. Have a great week and happy marketing.